Hey, everybody, and welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Michael Kristoff,
I'm Anna Muskie Goldwyn.
and I am drinking an emergency, which is 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C,
Is that because you
because
had a big birthday
I had
party
a I
maybe
had a
this
big
weekend?
birthday over the weekend. This was 2 days ago. Playlister Anna was there. Anthony was there in spirit. He was traveling, and it was awesome. It was great.
I feel like
Was
I feel like for turning, can I say, we already said it.
Mhm.
You're 40. You're 5 years away from not being able to do this podcast anymore.
I know. By the
And
way, I think we should absolutely hold to that. In 5
we're
years,
totally going to
I
kick
get
you
fired.
out. We need to go
Yeah.
find like a Gen. I'll get my 13-year-old cousin to be our new co-host.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
But I do feel like you had a very youthful birthday party. I felt like I was
Uh-huh.
being transported back to my pre-COVID party days. Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you keep us
Oh,
young,
wow.
Michael.
Wait, thank you. Thank you. Well, it was honestly like I was blown away by the turnout. I mean, so many people
We get it. You're popular.
came. Hey, listen. But no, it was fun. So this is preventative because as of the recording here, we are all starting to pack our bags and head out of town for Thanksgiving, which is when you will be listening to this episode. Happy Thanksgiving, Anna. Where are you going?
Happy
What are you doing?
Thanksgiving. I am driving to Reno, where Billy is from, and
Nice,
it's an
nice.
8-hour drive, which is not
Ooh,
the funnest
not
in the
nice,
world.
not
However,
nice.
not nice. However, I did get a new car, which I'm excited about. So we'll be in a new car, which is cool.
Amazing.
And then also, flying over Thanksgiving is so stressful. I always find that
Yeah.
it's actually really nice to just like be on our own schedule. And we're like, okay, we'll just like leave Tuesday morning and, come
Ugh,
back sometime on Sunday. Like it's just a very,
yeah,
as much as the drive sucks, it's nice, I think, specifically around Thanksgiving when you're like, is the flight going to be delayed? Is there going to be weather? Like, I have to get back by Sunday to be at
right.
work on like all that stuff kind of goes out the window a little bit. So, I am excited about that.
Also,
TBD if
I
we're going to
am
be able to ski, but
yeah, it's a little early, but all the rain in
yeah.
California is snow up in the mountains.
Yeah, so
I
we'll
am
see.
flying. I'm flying to New
I
York,
know.
and not only is like the air travel, a giant TBD right now, it is so unbelievably expensive
Expensive.
to
It's
fly.
crazy.
Now, it's
It's crazy.
crazy. It's like I fortunately was able
I
to
know
use
we
points, but
we
it's
bought
like,
our
"Oh
flights
my
back
god."
to New York for the Christmas holiday, and I was like really like nickel and diming, like, okay, if we leave one day earlier, like maybe
Right.
we save a little bit of money, like trying to, because we had some
Oh,
flexibility. And um
yeah.
it's a
I'm
it's a
leaving
sticker
crack of
shock for
dawn
sure.
tomorrow morning and then, like, coming back, I think, Sunday on a red eye. Like, it is full, like, price management on my arrival departure times.
So here's the
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
per this podcast. Do you think
Mhm.
that like news will happen this week?
Oh, man. I mean, it's been already such a slow week and
I
weekend,
mean,
between Marjorie Taylor Greene and a potential Ukraine, Russia ceasefire,
and a new friendship
uh,
between Trump and Zoran Mamdani.
and how could I forget? I I honestly, like, until you said that, I was like, "Oh, right, yeah, they're besties
That other
now."
thing happened. I will
Um,
say,
I
I
mean,
think that
wild. What do you think is
Mamdani,
behind that?
is smart. And I
Yeah.
think that he is super charming. And I think Trump respects nothing more than charm.
Yep.
And he is more charming than JD, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric combined times a million.
Yeah.
And I think that Mamdani clearly, like, in my opinion, won that whole situation because
Right.
in any other circumstance, the person, quote unquote, below the president would be expected to kind of like kowtow towards the president. And
Right.
Mamdani didn't. And in fact, like Trump was the one who was kind of bailing him out of hard questions, complimenting him. And I will say, I feel like from what I saw of the like, sort of interview in the Oval Office they did, all of the responses Mamdani gave when he was asked about the meeting were focused on New York. It was all about like, I'm here
Right.
for New Yorkers. And I think that what I saw someone, had kind of like put out a statement about was that meeting, probably secured federal money for New York City, which Trump had been threatening, which is
Yep.
very important. And we have
Yep.
lawmakers that we cover, like Mike Lawler, who's on the right, who has
Right. And we
already
talked to
gone to
him
bat.
about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
already gone to bat for Trump withholding federal money from New York City. And then I also think that he did a lot to ensure that more National Guard is not sent to New York,
Right.
that maybe
Right.
ICE operations in New York will not be as strong. And I think that it's like, there's sort of the Newsom approach, which is like, I'm going to bully back. And then there kind of is this new Mamdani approach, I think, which he has in favor of him because of his age, where he can kind of be like the young upstart that Trump is sort of enamored by. And I
Well,
think it was successful.
I agree with that. I would just amend that a little bit by saying that I think what Mamdani showed was strength and charisma.
Mm.
And he didn't bend the knee. He didn't, give in. He was there, very obviously won an overwhelming election. But I think that the takeaway is that what Trump seems to respect is a fellow strong seeming person, somebody who's not
Mm-hmm.
just a wet blanket. And I feel like
Like a commanding person.
yes, exactly. So it's not that he was like fighting back or talking tough. He was just firm and confident. And I think the history has shown that is the type of person Trump respects. And that, when I look at all of the JD Vances and the Marco Rubios of his cabinet, they're all wet blankets. They're all just
Mm-hmm.
falling over themselves. And Trump doesn't respect that. And so I think that exactly what you were saying, he's young, he's charismatic. I think Trump sort of is enamored with that. And I think honestly, he came in there very confidently and was cordial and probably did all the necessary flattery. And that's how you do business with Trump. I mean, it's amazing
Exactly.
more
Like
people
that's
haven't learned
politics.
that. Right.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think that's politics, but I do think that Mondani has, like, he's positioned to be able to, I think, exploit that in a really
Yeah.
specific way. And also because he's a mayor of a city, like, the relationship
Well, and
is
it's
different than if
Trump's
it's someone in
city, right?
Congress.
Trump
Yeah.
is a New Yorker. It's two New Yorkers talking, you know?
But Trump no longer really has political power in New York City. So it's also
Right.
kind of like there's no
Right.
threat against him like there would be potentially for a member of Congress or something like that.
Right.
So
Well,
anyway, it's kind of
speaking of
interesting how it'll play out.
young and charismatic, on
Uh-huh.
this Thanksgiving episode, this is the first ever political playlist remaster. And we are re-releasing, yes, hold for applause. We're re-releasing an episode, but we're not just re-releasing any episode. What or who is the charismatic young politician that we're going to be talking with today?
If you guessed Congressman Maxwell Frost from Orlando, Florida, you would be correct.
Yep.
Let me just remind you really quickly who Frost is. So
Yep.
he is a 28-year-old representative, Democrat from the Orlando area in Florida. He was elected to office in 2022 when he was 25 years old. So just let that sink in and make you feel a little bit inadequate for your age, like we do when we speak to him. He has a really interesting background. He is Puerto Rican, Lebanese, Haitian from his birth father, adopted by a Cuban immigrant mother, and a musician father, which we get into with him. He has a super strong background in music and music education before he pivoted into politics. And his political journey actually started when he was a teenager, and he got involved in the gun control movement after the Sandy Hook shooting. And so he worked with Obama's campaign in 2012. He worked at the ACLU. We actually don't talk about this in the interview, but I was reading. Did you know that his band played at Obama's second inauguration?
I did not know.
Isn't that
Damn.
amazing?
Wait,
Yeah.
wow, that's wild. Well, we'll have to talk with him
Yeah.
about that at some point.
I know.
Yeah.
Notably, he is the first Gen Z member of Congress. And that
Wow.
shows in a lot of the way that he goes about his campaigning and politicking. He's very communicative on social media. And the reason that we're re-releasing this today is
Yes. What can we say?
we can't tell you the whole reason, but we can tell
Yet.
you that we can tell you that we are working on something really cool and very special that is going to be featuring Representative Frost. And we are becoming very familiar with the city of Orlando in the process, we will say. And we're really grateful to be working on this project and having him be a part of it, because we really do feel like he is definitive of why it's so important to have young people in political office. He's innovative. He cares about issues that affect his generation. And I think that, he's pretty far left, but I think whether you agree with him or not, I feel like he's very representative of how a young person can harness political power in a new way. So he's just an exciting person to talk to today on this episode. And then you'll hear from more in this project that we're working on.
Well, without further ado, here is our interview with Congressman Maxwell Frost.
You are going to vote tomorrow in an election.
The millennial generation is the
America's youngest
generation.
since 1965.
The political revolution of the millennials.
Welcome to Political Playlist
All right. Are we ready, guys?
Happy Hour.
Happy hour.
You fucked that up so bad.
Well, Congressman Frost, welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Yeah.
How's your day in Congress been today? Crazy,
Today-
calm.
Today's a crazy day. Today's a packed day. There's a ton of things going on, but I was actually just with Riley, who is our winner of our Congressional Art Challenge, which is actually one of the cool things Congress does.
Cool.
And so I was just showing her around the Capitol, and we were looking at her piece hanging up in the basement. So I'm like, it's a good start to the day. It's a
Yeah,
good
you
Yeah.
get like a little bit of that positivity
Mhm.
starting the day. That's nice.
Yep.
That's nice. And I mean, we can get into it a little bit more, but like you are a very big proponent of the arts. And so I feel like Michael and I we're both writers, and Michael's a director, and we know that about you. And do you kind of do you feel like you get a little special bond when you get to see these kids and sort of tell them, I'm fighting for this part of you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, because I really resonate with the experience of being a young person, like in high school and middle school, coming up through the arts. And, I went to our local art school for middle school and high school, Osceola County School for the Arts. So I was there for 7 years as a band major. And so I know a lot about the experience of being like an art kid growing up. And so it's cool to be able to connect. And actually with Riley, but also I host a reception for all the artists locally who are, the young artists who submit to this competition.
Cool.
So they always come up to me and say, wow, your speech was so relatable, just hearing about your troubles as a young person coming up through art and everything like that. And,
Yeah.
we like to joke around with all the stereotypes and everything.
Yeah.
Some of which are
is there
true,
like a
you know.
house- Is there a house band? Do you guys
There
have
is
like
not a house band.
jam?
I'm finding out though more and more members actually play instruments,
Yeah.
and so little by little, I'm learning a little bit more. But we were laughing because the other day one of my staff members comes up to me and says yeah, one of my friends said you give theater kid energy. And I was like,
my
theater
gosh.
kid energy. I was low key offended because
You're like, I'm a drummer.
I'm a band kid.
Yeah.
Theater kid energy is very distinct. It's
Yeah.
distinctly different from band kid energy, different from visual arts, different from creative
Yeah.
writer.
Yeah.
There's similarities, but I don't think I give off theater kid. I love our theater kids.
You're too chill to be theater kid to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
you seem very relaxed. I don't think that I've ever seen a theater kid who just kind of sits really calmly in their seat. So
Yeah, exactly. But if you looked at my legs right now, I'm my legs are going off because I'm drumming in my head.
they're perfect.
Yeah.
Is that what you
Yeah.
do? When you're just sort of a tick that kind of keeps you concentrated and calm, is just moving your legs?
Yeah, moving my legs or just drumming, tapping. I'm always tapping. Something that my first band director told us to do that I started doing, my parents really liked, is he was his whole thing was he was always about being a musician is about controlling sound. So I don't like when people are tapping in class and stuff. So what I want you to do is I want you to tap your toes in your shoes. And so sometimes I do that when I don't want to be tapping.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
I was not a musician, but I was a rower, which is a very rhythmic sport.
Yeah.
So I often am like I do a lot of like totally unconscious like rhythmic breathing when I'm just
Mm,
sitting and doing something and like
yeah.
counting things. So I can relate a little bit.
How long did you row for?
Oh my gosh, I rode for 7 years in high school and college, and yeah, it was good preparation for, the
The real
pain of
world.
life.
I
Yeah,
don't.
it's
Yeah,
got
I
good
don't know anything
work
about.
ethic to it.
I don't know anything about rowing except when I was like in high school, I was obsessed with the show Make It or Break It.
My God, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
After I I had a kind of an abrupt ending because they didn't like finish it. But after the show ended, I was like on Google and I was like, I need to become an Olympian because I have an obsessive personality. So I watched
Sure.
like Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior. I want to be like a karate person. I watched
Right.
Make It or Break It. I
That's
want to go to
funny.
the Olympics. So I literally Googled what's the easiest way to become an Olympian, and it
Rowing.
said, well, it didn't say rowing,
Oh,
but it said being a
a
coxsman.
coxswain. Yeah.
A
Yeah,
coxswain.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
true? I mean, no
Um,
disrespect to
Yeah, no, I
coxswains.
think that, well, there's two things. Like rowing's a very niche sport. So
Mhm.
in some ways it's seen as like a sport where you can kind of get in and like if you're good at it and you excel
Mhm.
at it, you can kind of like rise in the ranks because it's a smaller sport.
Yeah.
And being a coxswain, I mean, the parameters are if you want to be an Olympic coxswain, you do have to be like under 110 pounds
Oh,
Mm.
okay.
and you have to
I'm
be
already
very small.
disqualified.
Yeah, you have to be super small because you're just dead weight.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think like you'd probably be a good coxswain because this is actually what we're going to talk about today. You're very good at communicating.
Mhm.
And that is, I've had a lot of good coxswains and bad coxswains. The coxswain's the person that sits in the boat and steers and like yells
Yeah.
into the microphone.
Yeah.
And some coxswains are just like they just like count basically and like call out commands. But a great coxswain can kind of like see the race, communicate to you where you are, what needs to happen, know the
Interesting.
athletes so they can sort of like tell what part of the race someone's at that they need a
Mhm.
little bit of encouragement. So I actually think like the communication skills as a politician actually would have translated very well from an Olympic coxswain, which I'm sure you could have achieved
Damn.
if
Yeah.
you had set your mind to it.
Okay. Good to know.
Well, I think this is a perfect segue communication to sort of lead us off here, Congressman. And I was really enjoying a recent interview you gave where you were talking about this merging of culture and advocacy. And I feel like if something is cool, if something's fun, if everybody's doing it, sort of makes others want to do it too. So I guess my question is how do you think Democrats can capitalize on that sort of thing to create these, we'll call them cultural moments that have real meaning that are going to pull people into the party and the movement?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate this question because I mean, when you look throughout the history of our nation and really like human history, the times where large social movements actually accomplished large scale change or did what they wanted to do is when there was this merging between the culture of the society that the movement's based in and then the advocacy portion and goals as well. And that's really important. And there's times where we see things, social media has helped with this in a lot of ways. It's hurt it in a little bit, because it's given people kind of permission to do less. However, less in terms of like going out into a thing, but it's helped us a lot too because it's helped us get the message across to people in an easier way. And there's a lot of times where the social movement kind of veers into culture, but there's distinct moments where it blows up and the people who don't really pay attention to politics are then engaged in it. I think we're seeing it veer right now with what's going on in Los Angeles and the
Yep.
fight for immigrants, right? Some people would argue like, oh, it's already a big part of the culture. I would say it hasn't like fully taken over to the point where like everyone in this nation, even people who don't care about politics, are fully aware of the situation, but it's like getting there in a big
Yeah.
way. And so this happens a lot. But my big like it's a bit of a cautionary tale too for politicians is we shouldn't want to like be figuring out how we can use culture or use like big social moments to like win campaigns. But what we should look for is to like be a part of of a larger conversation, get caught fighting, And those moments will naturally and organically at times blow up and become moments that give people more hope in our party and in politicians and things like that. But it's a fine line. And, if you try to like use it, I was going to ask where the beer was because this is called
Oh.
happy hour.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't
Michael
have a
does have a
beer.
beer.
Wait,
I do.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm in
Michael
my
has a beer.
office.
It's not even 10 a.m. in LA, so I have a protein shake.
Okay, a protein
so,
shake.
You know,
yeah,
it's
okay.
morning happy hour.
I have
here.
a water, but we'll pretend it's beer. Okay, sorry.
I'm on
see it.
East Coast. I'm on East Coast.
You're on
time,
East Coast.
so
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Back on the subject. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of people who come up to me, in part just because I'm the youngest person here, who are like, what can we do to like go viral, to blow up? And I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I think the right question is like, number one, of course, what can we do to meet the moment that we're in? And two, how can we ensure that it's part of this broader conversation? And when you do that and you do it consistently, because the problem is when you're searching to be viral or you're searching for like that cultural moment, it's not going to come across as authentic, which I think is a problem our party has had that we need to like get better at. But number two, it means you're looking for one-off moments. Anyone who's like a content creator or musician or someone in the arts will tell you that it's not about looking for the one thing, but being consistent. And then the one thing will come from the consistency. And a lot of times you'll have no idea what it is. I mean, for me, there have been moments where we've tried to do something and it didn't like blow up as much as we wanted it to. But the moments that do blow up are the ones that we did not think would. And it's just me being me doing my thing. Like, and a lot of it has nothing to do with policy, right? It could be me going to a Paramore concert, my girlfriend and my friends, and being called on stage to like sing with Haley. When I walk on the streets, like one of the top things people stop me is they're like, you're the congressman who went on stage with Paramore, or you're the congressman who got denied apartments when you moved to DC, right? That wasn't a planned thing where my staff was like, drop this in an interview so it can go viral. I dropped it in an interview actually in a very nonchalant way because I had dealt with housing insecurity during the campaign. So for me, it was like, here we go again. And I didn't think it would be a big moment. And then just hours later, it blows up and becomes one of the biggest things people know me for. So, the cautionary tale is important because, again, we should seek to be part of a conversation, not dominate the conversation, but show like, give people hope in the work we're doing, meeting the moment. And naturally, we'll be more aligned with the culture. And one thing I want to point to is like, obviously we didn't win, but the Kamala Harris campaign, the reason I bring this up is because it wasn't necessarily she was trying to find moments to like, let me show I'm in the culture. And one big thing is most of the Kamala Harris like stuff that went viral online on TikTok was actually not a lot of it wasn't new content. It was like stuff from years ago of her just like talking that people like felt like it was authentic or funny or disarming. And it ended up endearing a lot of especially young people to her. But that was like not stuff that was manufactured in the campaign laboratory.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So I feel like just the more you are being yourself, communicating in all spaces, not just the people who consume news as a hobby. Now there's going to be moments that you pop off online, and more importantly, like in person through demonstrations of movements. And I think that's going to be the best way for our party to like get back in touch with like what people are thinking on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I often think that one of sort of talking about, people stopping you on the street, you going up at that concert. I also feel like something that is so effective amongst politicians is when we see some of you guys together in like a casual setting or just like being friends, right? Like being people, because that's something that I think often Americans forget is like you're all coworkers actually, and one example of this that I really loved, and this is maybe we're biased because we're from Connecticut, but when you and Chris Murphy went and did the town halls in the Republican districts, and it just was like, oh, here's sort of like a intergenerational, you guys are both great communicators in your different ways. You sort of have these viral moments in your different ways, but kind of coming together and seizing on a moment, which was like none of the Republicans going and doing their town halls. And so I'm curious, like, just for that specific example, what was that like? And were there Republicans at those town halls? I always wondered, like, because in some narrative, it's like, oh, well, it's all just Democrats of that district showing up. Was that true? Or did you have conversations where you were kind of speaking maybe to people who wouldn't have voted for you?
No, there were Republicans that came to all of them. There were independents that came to all of them. There were people in MAGA hats that showed up to like heckle, but ended up not heckling.
Wow.
I know this because they're planning this stuff openly on X. Like I'm openly on Twitter. I'm like on Twitter and like looking what people are saying about the event coming up. And there's people like yeah, let's show up and like heckle them. Like, yeah, who wants
Oh
to
my
come? You
God.
coming? It's Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Let me know when you're there. Like, they're just planning
Wow.
it on the internet. So,
Yeah.
so I like, but we haven't been heckled yet. And honestly, like, after each one of these, Chris and I get off the stage, we get down and we speak with people and we have like one-on-one conversations. And we've had many Republicans come to these. In fact, one of the ones we did was actually in an area called Saxapahaw, North Carolina, and this is about an hour, 45 minutes, an hour outside of Raleigh. And in actually, a worry I had was that it would be mostly like liberals and progressives from Raleigh, right? But we were going to this small rural community to speak with a lot of those people, and so the chair of the party, Anderson Clayton, who's amazing, and she's an organizer, she was like, we're going to sign everybody in and we're going to get data to tell you where these folks came from. And 95% of the people were actually from the county that we did the town hall in. They weren't from Raleigh. And so that was like a very small percentage of the people. And so we found that a big part of this is because we're like announcing these and they're not selling out, but they're like RSVPing out like very quickly.
Yeah.
When Chris and I first came up with this idea, we were like, well, we'll have a couple hundred people at each one. And then we released the thing in less than a day. We always have over 1,000 RSVPs.
Wow.
Actually, the next ones we're planning, we're looking at much bigger venues because part of the issue has been that, you don't want to have too many people sign up and then not be able to get in. And we're doing these venues where maybe we can fit 1,000 people if we stuff everyone in there, but we want it to be comfortable. So we've had 1,000 people at all of these, except the first
Wow.
one we couldn't. We had to like shut it off, and we had about 500. But the next ones we want to do even more. But it just shows people like are hungry for action and they want to speak to people. And it's been great to be on the road with him. I've actually known Chris Murphy since I was 15 years old.
Yeah, I would
Wow.
imagine from, all the March for Our Lives and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. It was the first event I ever did politically was going to the vigil for the victims of the Sandy Hook shooting, for all victims of gun violence. And it was
Wow.
there that 15-year-old me met then brand new Senator
Wow.
Chris Murphy.
Yeah.
And I would go to this vigil every year throughout high school all the way till now. And I would see him there. And, so I've known him for a long time. And when I became the organizing director of March for Our Lives, the relationship changed to more of from an advocacy point of view to an elected official. And then when I got into Congress, the first bill I introduced was creating the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We introduced it together, and we actually won it together when the Biden administration did it through executive order using our bill. And so, it's a cool
That's an
full
amazing
circle
story.
moment.
Yeah.
And I think what you brought up is so important, that when we come together, it shows people that we see this as a bigger movement, because oftentimes politicians were associated with selfishness, just being about boosting ourselves. And when you do stuff together, it really breaks through that narrative. And so whether it's with Chris, or I have a music festival in my district where I invite a ton of members, and we had AOC come out or Greg Casad come out and like different people. It shows folks, and not even just in Congress, I have local elected officials, activists, organizers, seeing us all in the same area working towards the same thing, I think gives people hope, and it helps change this perception of what politicians are. I call myself, you have a lot of people come in, they're like, I'm not a politician. I am a politician. Like, I was elected to office, I'm a politician. And
Yeah.
I say that because I want to be a part of this movement to help change what that means, like what that word means. It's a bad word right now, and like that's sad because these are the people like running the freaking country. So I don't shy away from the word, because I want to make sure people, that we hopefully there's a day where people think politician and they're like, yay, like someone I like.
Yeah.
I don't, like that's my
Well,
hope.
that's our hope with this show.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting is I am seeing more and more Gen Z and millennial voters who are gravitating more towards identifying as independent, because they are feeling like they don't want to be labeled as a Democrat or a Republican. And maybe that's good in the long run, but I think in the short term, what are some things that you tell young voters when you talk to them that, hey, here are the things that the Democrats are doing that is a good reason for you to, champion our cause and this party, as opposed to what the Republicans are doing or saying they're doing or not doing?
Yeah. I'm um
I know
I'm
that's sort
sorry.
of a
Can you
big
ask the question
question, but
again? I made the mistake of looking at my phone.
No, that's
and I
okay.
You know what?
no, I just read this.
Relatable.
No, but
Hashtag relatable.
I got some bad news
Uh.
from my dad, who I grew up listening to the Beach Boys with my dad,
No.
and Brian Wilson passed away.
What? Like just
Oh,
Brian
now?
Wilson just
wow.
now. Yeah, that's a hard
Oh,
one for me. I grew up on that.
Oh,
That's a tough one.
wow.
So
That's
sorry,
tough.
I did not hear your
No.
that's
question.
okay.
No, that's
I should
okay.
not have looked at my phone.
We'll re-ask the question, and we'll
Um,
dedicate
Okay,
this
sorry.
episode
Wow.
to we'll dedicate this episode to Brian Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well-
sorry. Go ahead again.
Well, my question was going to be, I feel like so many young voters are now identifying as independents because they don't want to be labeled as a Democrat
Yeah,
or
that's a
Republican.
Democrat. Yeah.
And when you talk to young voters and your peers and even older voters, what's that conversation like? What are you telling them that, hey, this is what the Democrats are doing and this is what we're bringing to the table that
Yeah,
the Republicans aren't?
I think the first thing that's important is I always like to number one, validate the root of people's concerns, because we know the two-party system isn't popular, right? And
Yeah.
the fastest growing party in Florida, at least, is non-party affiliate.
Wow.
That's like the fastest growing registration right now. And so I think it's something that both parties really have to contend with in a big way. But as a Democrat, something I always encourage people to view the Democratic Party, at least, as is less of a typical political party and more of a political coalition. And it's a coalition that we build that is very broad, but we build together on a base set of values that we believe in, that we believe this government should be doing, and we come together at election time to vote for the people who are best suited to move forward those values. And then the day after election day, we come together again to have family discussions, sometimes family fights, to figure out where we go from there on the specific policy. And I think that's the way I see it as an organizer, and that's the way I encourage people to see it, because a lot of young people view voting as like a moral declaration, right? Like a declaration of like their morality, everything. So, and when you think about it that way, you view it as like, I have to agree, the candidate has to agree with every single thing I believe in. And sometimes that's true, and so a lot of times it's not. I've worked for a lot of candidates I didn't fully agree with, but we came together as a coalition to prevent far right people, and now unfortunately far right fascists and authoritarians, from coming into office and taking away from our democratic values and beliefs. So that's one thing I always bring up to people. But then the second thing is I like to point to examples of Democrats that are actually fighting and that are values aligned. And I think more and more people have people that they look up to, but sometimes they don't necessarily equate them to the Democratic Party. I love AOC, I love Chris Murphy, I love Maxwell, I love Jasmine Carr, I love this and that. But then the same hand, they'll be like, but the Democratic Party isn't doing enough. But the thing is, like, we're Democrats, we're part of the Democratic Party. And so I think something that the Democratic Party in the infrastructure needs to do, that they're doing a lot better of a job of now, I gotta say, is connecting themselves to a lot of these folks that people are excited about.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important. I mean, we were talking before, I worked for Bernie, right? And obviously there's a lot of bad blood between people who were very inspired by his campaign and way things went down and the way things were said in the past. I'm a big person for looking forward, but I think the best way to kind of bring people together again is to say, look, we don't care if you're very progressive or even more centrist than that. If you're exciting our people, our base, our Democrats, we want to help uplift you and we want to do stuff with you. And I think that's really important. Like, you never would have thought AOC would be speaking at the Democratic National Convention like she did last
Right.
time. But I think
Right.
it was a great move to extend her that invitation, because she's inspired so many people across the nation and across the world. And now people see her on that stage and say, like, oh, wow, the Democratic Party, we're not a cult like they are. Like, the Democratic Party
Right.
isn't one person. It's us. It's you. It's me. It's what we make it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's important.
To that point, it's funny. I was having a conversation with Caleb Wilson, and he had made the comment to me. He's like, do you know the supporters of Bernie and the supporters of AOC only overlap by about a third?
Yeah.
Meaning each of
Yep.
them has 2/3 of their own, constituency. And I think that speaks to your point about coalition, that,
Yep.
yeah, when you look on the right, everyone is sort of the same and follows the same sort of towing the line. But that isn't the Democratic Party. That's never been the Democratic.
Yeah, and that's why you will rarely and if probably never hear me really disparaging other people, even if I disagree with them. Yeah, especially other members, because this is, again, I've joked around about this too, that we should change our name from the Democratic Party to Democrat Coalition, because no one likes parties anymore. And like, I think it's a better
Yeah.
representation of like what we are and the mindset of what we need to do. And so politics is about addition, not subtraction. So if you disagree with that one thing Bernie said, maybe don't like take to national news to like,
Right.
completely disparage the guy and then put off the millions and millions of people that follow him and look up to him. And same thing with AOC, and I'll see same thing with like people who might be more centrist but have their own following. Like, I don't know, I feel like as Democrats sometimes a problem is we're always looking to take like snipe at each other and take little shots at each other, and we gotta really let go of that. Like, there's serious policy disagreements that sometimes we'll all have, and we should have that discussion, but we should look for opportunities to bring people together and assume best intentions, because at the end of the day we're all like literal people. Like, we're all like
Yeah.
humans who are doing what we think is right, and I think we're doing a lot better now. But I, sometimes I'm disappointed when I go online and I see, people try to hit each other. It's like, let's build. Like, we all have something to contribute here, and we're gonna have family discussions on policy. Like, I believe I'm a progressive. I believe that people want bold transformational change in this country, and so I'm going to fight tooth and nail for that. But I also recognize, like, I have really good friends that are in a different place than me in Congress, and I think that what they have to say is valuable as well. And like, let's like figure out how we build our coalition, not tear each other
Right.
apart.
Well, and there's also a reason they won their district, right? It's a representational game. So it's like, if their message resonated with those people, then there's a level of respect that, I appreciate you have for I think it's important within both parties, frankly.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we'll
the
focus
Republican
on your
Party,
party.
people think we're in disarray right now. I mean, when when Trump is gone, I promise everyone what they're going to go through is going to be way
Mm,
worse.
mm.
They're going to be very lost. Everyone's going to think they're the person, and it's probably going to get pretty nasty. And I think they're going to have a tough time, because Donald Trump saved that party from obscurity, because they were really going down, I think, a path where they were losing like everybody, and he saved them from obscurity by leaning into like right wing, authoritarianism and neo fascism and stuff. But those feelings and those movements are very powerful, and that's why we have to like really contend. We can't like just brush it aside. Like, when Donald Trump leaves, that movement isn't going anywhere. I mean, throughout human history, we've seen right wing authoritarians come to power, and so we have to make sure that we're building our coalition to fight the future Donald Trumps as well.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, I wanted to ask a little bit about your journey here, because I think that, you were elected to Congress when you were 25 years old, which is
Yeah, it's so
amazing.
cool.
Like, I just have to say
So
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
But then even before that, you did so much from an incredibly young age. I mean, you alluded to before, you've known Chris Murphy since you were 15. So working with March for Our Lives, many other, gun violence prevention organizations, you worked for on the Obama campaign, Bernie, and then eventually Hillary's campaign. Like, you've done it all. So my question is, where did that very early in life thirst for activism and standing up come from? Was it your parents? Was it something at school? Like, what was bubbling inside of you that,
Yeah.
I hope bubbles in a lot of people at that age?
I mean, obviously, like, you have an environment, right, that's like that makes you as a person ripe for like getting involved. So like, it is my parents, and my dad is someone who's very like, he cares a lot about politics. It is my mom, who's a teacher, and like, it is, my dad's a musician, like, and so just all this stuff coming together created Maxwell Frost, being a band kid who just wanted to be a drummer. And it was before a jazz band concert where a I'm in like a Chili's or a Fridays with my best friends, and we look at the television screens. We see, wow, somebody walked into an elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut, and murdered all these children and teachers. And it really had a big impact on my life. And I ended up going to that vigil I was talking about in DC, where I met Chris and I met all these people for the first time. And what changed everything for me there wasn't even the vigil itself, to be honest. It was the night of the vigil, when all the kids my age that I had been hanging out with for days were sitting around this pool, and I just start hearing them talk about their sisters and brothers and parents that they lost, and they were my age. And seeing people with that kind of pain, like I always say, like seeing 16-year-olds with the demeanor of like 60-year-olds crying over their family who were murdered in school changed my life. And I remember I came home and said, like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to end gun violence. And I started organizing, and little by little, I found ways to incorporate the arts in what I did. And fast forward, and now I'm here. So it's wild, but gun violence is really the issue that got me involved.
Yeah. Do you feel, I mean, obviously it's difficult right now, but amongst Democrats, and it's also like what you see at like state and local levels around the country, like do you feel that there is still hope in that fight for you and the other people working on it?
There is. I mean, and especially if you've been in the gun violence prevention movement for a few years or a decade like me, I mean, you know that our movement's actually it's the most powerful it's ever been. And for the first time, our movement is actually more powerful than the gun lobby. And the way we know that is, during the first 2 years of the Biden administration, when we got the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first piece of gun violence legislation in 30 years. Was it everything we wanted? Hell no. There's a lot more we need. But
Right.
it saved lives. We got the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We got millions and millions and millions for community violence intervention, which is helping to fund groups locally that intervene, that break the cycles of violence, especially in a lot of Black and brown communities. And so I think part of the reason we're so powerful now is because we've expanded. It's about the gun laws, but it's also about the organizations and funding on the ground work. And it's about that, but it's also, yes, it's about the mental health. Yes, it's about public health. Our movement has a more holistic view of what victory looks like and what it should look like than we did 10 years ago. And because of that, we've built our ranks, and we're the most powerful we've ever been. And so we've taken great strides forward. Obviously, we're taking some steps back, but I am very optimistic in the future on ending gun violence. People don't know this, but over the last 3 years, gun violence has gone down the most it's gone down in our nation's history.
Wow.
Wow.
Boston,
Yeah, I did not know
40%,
that.
Chicago, 23%. Like, we're talking big numbers in big cities. And so we've proven that, like, we don't need any more studies. Like, we've proven what we need to do.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. That's really amazing to have witnessed all of that, I'm sure. So thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor of a lifetime.
Well, and thank you for just continuing the work. As you said, it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This legislation you guys passed was a huge piece of progress, and you now have a Congress opposite party that doesn't really want to work with you. And as you said, the tide will eventually change. And so, keep up the great work. And this was really great to be with you. Thank you for talking with us.
Thank you so much. What an amazing
Yeah.
conversation. I'm so excited to meet you in person.
Yeah,
we'll let you guys. Oh, or no, you're in Michael. You're on the East Coast.
I'm usually in Venice. I'm here for visiting family.
Oh,
Next time
next-
you do your little SoCal journey,
We'll hit you guys
link
up
up,
for
and
sure.
if we're in DC, we'll let you know. But really amazing to talk to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right.